This morning, in the cold light of day, some of those Leave voters were stunned by the magnitude of what they had just done.
I'm shocked that we actually have voted to leave. I didn't think that was going to happen. My vote, I didn't think was going to matter too much because I thought we were just going to remain. The period of uncertainty that we're going to have for the next couple of months, I think that's just been magnified now. So yeah, quite worried. This morning, the reality is actually hitting in, and the regrets are filling in of actually that we have actually left EU. Very disappointed. The whole family this morning, even though the majority of us voted to leave, we are actually regretting it today.
Now, this does have democracy at the center. This is about democracy, but I think it's about the lack of it in Europe. The unelected European board, the Central European Board that is embodiment of lack of democracy and is in itself kind of insulated from popular pressure.
You have been a strong critic of economic management in the EU and particularly as regards countries like Ireland and Greece and so forth. I mean, some people make the case that was part of what was here, although in some ways, you know, the UK has been isolated because they have the pound and they haven't been waterboarded underneath German austerity the way that say the Greeks are. What's your read on that?
Yeah, well, a couple things. First off, you know, UK by its own volition has gone the route of austerity, and exactly as you're saying,
that's right. They voted for it themselves. No one imposed it on them, right?
Exactly. They voted for themselves, and, you know, similar outcomes, not as bad as, you know, what you've seen across the Eurozone, but still their economy's not been great. They've recovered, but not very well. There's still, most people have very little to show over the last 8 years, 9 years. And you've had real cuts in a lot of public services, you know, so national health service has been a big issue. People have been talking about older people. Well, older people need health care. And, you know, by a lot of accounts, the national health service there has deteriorated badly because of budget cuts. Hasn't been forced by Brussels, but nonetheless, people may not realize that. You know, the Brexit people were blaming that on immigrants. It wasn't an immigrant story. The fact was the people they voted for chose to make those cuts. They should have recognized that, but they didn't. They realized they blamed Brussels. But, you know, taking a step further, you know, when we hear these stories of the horrible fallout, the case you were talking about a moment ago where, you know, this is the first step, then it's France, then it's, you know, whoever else. Well, part of that story will be depending on the reaction of the European Union leadership. So if their response is, we're going to punish them, we're going to make them feel the pain so no one else wants to do this, well, that's an incredible downward path. I mean, there's the old Monty Python line, the beatings will continue until morale improves. And that is a disaster. And what you have to hope for is we have a little learning, some signs of intelligent life in the Eurozone. We'll have to see. That's my hope.
But you have to look at, I mean, I will say, and Dean knows this better than I do, but the level of inequality in the UK is something that has to be looked at very closely. I mean, we have in the last 2 years evidence to suggest from the National Board of Statistics in the UK that you've seen an increase in wealth go into the top 1% of something like 21%. Very fast growth of wealth going to that top 1%, with the bottom 45% of the population sharing 9% of the wealth. You have, again, surveys of property, pensions, share wealth, housing, amounting to an average in London of something like $1 million plus of the average family, versus the bottom 10%, something like £12,000. Right. The contrast is huge, and this is one of the things at the heart of the problem. So yes, you can say, well, they did vote for austerity themselves, they'll feel more pain. They're already feeling the pain.
And they're going to be feeling worse pain.
Yes, for sure. I mean, this is not a rational vote. This is going to be deep
austerity. And, you know, I think, just to push back a little bit, the average tax rates across the rest of the European Union are way more progressive for the most part than they are in Britain. This is the same electorate that voted back a Conservative government with a majority last year. So I think, you know, it might be misplaced. It's definitely misplaced. But the idea that Europe is the problem, the cause of Britain's inequalities is I think, a very bad misreading.
Absolutely, but it is the argument that the Leave contingent made.
One thing I think we're almost certain to see from this is Britain's financial industry is going to pay a price. Right. And if someone wanted to kick Britain's financial industry, they did it. And you might also see a collapse of the London financial real estate market, which, you know, to my view, would be all for the positive and might not take the form I'd like. But, you know, a very bloated market. It had been a safe haven for rich people from around the world. May no longer be the case.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Britain had, you could argue, the best of both worlds. It was in the European Union, therefore in the single market, but not a part of the Eurozone. It didn't have to wear that sadomonetarist straitjacket that members of the Eurozone are forced to wear. So it was able to rebound. It was also permitted and is permitted to be the center of trading of the euro. That's almost certainly going to end now as a result of this. And that's a lot of business. That's a lot of global bank headquarters. That's a lot of jobs. Whatever you think of the over-financialization of the British or the American economy, that is real economic activity.
Ed Luce, Dean Baker.
And the City of London voted 75% to stay.
That was,
and they found out they didn't actually rule the world.
That's right. Ed Luce, Dean Baker, and Laura Flanders, thank you all. Appreciate it.